What would your advice be to somebody who's going, look, I'm kind of new to social media in general, but I want to put myself out there. Where do I start? What do I do?
I think firstly, you need to be very clear on who your audience is. Before you even start recording, is being clear on who you speak to and how you solve their problem. And then we can start crafting content that's, again, especially catered toward that person with the answers that you have for that problem that they have. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite quote?
I have a few favorite quotes. I'll give you two here. So the first one comes from Gary Vaynerchuk. Make more content, expletive. Make more content. Those were his final words. The second thing that I heard Sean Cannell say from over the Think Media team the other day was, if you confuse, you lose. Being clear and concise in who you serve and how you serve them is the key. That is the key to having a successful platform.
All right. My guest today on the A Game podcast is a digital marketing expert and a full-time entrepreneur. He has a black belt in social media growth and content creation, and he helps business owners create better content in less time. His YouTube channel boasts over 600,000 views on some of his videos, and he's a very popular figure today on Clubhouse. He is the founder of the Awesome Dad Show with Mark Savant and the host of the After Hours Entrepreneur podcast, which frequently ranks in the top 1% of podcasts and consistently generates organic traffic and fresh leads. He's had such amazing guests as Pat Flynn, Jasmine Starr, John Lee Dumas, and our mutual friend, Steve Olsher, who is an awesome guy. Mark is a husband, father of two, and a great guy, spilling tons of amazing content all over the internet today. Thank you for being here, and welcome to the A Game podcast, Mark Savant.
Yo, what up, Nick? What up, A Game? Thrilled to be here and excited to talk about how to create better content in less time. Let's go.
I love it, man. You know, I was telling you earlier before we started recording that I've been binging the After Hours Entrepreneur, man. And that first episode, when you go on and you talk about who that is for, I thought was so smart and so amazing the way you gave your backstory. And it's interesting because there was like 5 or 6 things that I was like, that's me, that's me, that's me, that's me. And, you know, I think that's the beautiful part about podcasts. Like you said, even some of the ones you're not doing live right now, people can go back and there's something that they're relating to that they can go find in your archives, whether it's a personal struggle as an entrepreneur or wanting to learn how to grow on Clubhouse or Facebook ads. You have a really good encyclopedia and backlog of pretty much everything between your YouTubes and your podcast. And I think it's really amazing. And I appreciate that you do that.
Yeah. And I think that's a great structure for how you actually want to craft a show and create a show. I think that everybody has some talent or some skill, something that they're great at, whether it's real estate or mortgage loans or prospecting or real estate investing. There's something you do that you're very knowledgeable about. And so getting thoughtful about what are the frequently asked questions, what are the common errors that people make, and how can you actually solve those problems? And if you can create content that can really solve someone's problem, they're going to be hooked and they're going to keep listening. You're going to keep giving them wins. And then you can funnel them into whatever your program is, whether it's a coaching program or a checklist or whatever that benefit is that you offer. Getting clear on the frequently asked questions in your area of expertise is huge. You could create infinite content from that, right?
I love that. Is there any specific sites or places you go to try and figure out what are some of the most frequently asked questions in whatever field somebody might be wanting to create content on?
Yeah, sure. I can hit you up with a few here, Nick. So one quick website is answerthepublic.com, and that's answerthepublic.com. It's free to get started, and it's going to show you what people are actually searching for in Google, right? So if people are typing into Google, that means that they've got a question that you can probably solve. So what's your unique offering there? So that's answerthepublic.com. Another great place, I think, is joining Facebook groups that are relevant to your niche, and then just be a participant and see what are the questions people keep asking over and over again. Okay. Create content to answer that question. And then inevitably, when that question comes up, you can pop there in the comments and say, this is a great question. Give them one quick answer and say, for more answers, here's a link to my show. Right. So that's another really effective way I found to find topics. Another quick way that you can do that is just by doing YouTube searches. I use a tool called VidIQ. VidIQ. It's free to use, free to start using. And it just allows you to get more context on what people are searching for on YouTube. So again, you can see that 1 and 2 are all revolving around what are people actually typing into the internet and how can you solve that problem that they're trying to figure out?
I love that, man. I think that that's huge. And, you know, one of the things that I think is amazing about your specific story is it's so relatable in the fact that you kept having to pivot. And even when you were finding financial success, you weren't finding fulfillment. And I find that that's a common theme is people think initially, if I make money, I'll be happy. And then they do, or they achieve that goal and they realize that that really wasn't what they want. I know we've talked about it in the show, like Robin Williams is a classic example of having all this success in the world and no fulfillment or happiness. And I really respect the fact that you acknowledged it and did something about it, because everybody else, I shouldn't say everybody else, but a lot of people will literally just go to their grave making excuses of why it was too late to pivot, or they can't do this or they can't do that. And you really made a conscious effort to really reestablish your work-life balance and your happiness. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about that, because I think so many people that listen to the show, whether they are working a 9 to 5 or they're making a bunch of money running their own business, are still trying to figure out that work-life balance and that personal fulfillment.
Yeah, well, work-life balance is very difficult because now that, and historically you leave the office, you're done for the day, but now it's like work follows you everywhere. You can be on the ride home and you get someone emailing you your smartphone. I think for me, Nick, it's really a commitment to keeping up or to learning. We're going through a really interesting time in history. And I think it's hard for us to sometimes quantify how interesting 2020, 2021 are. There's new technologies coming out every day. We're seeing a huge shift in the way that people, get information. It's not just Google now, it's podcasts, it's YouTube, it's apps, it's all these social media platforms. So, which are always changing. Every day there's some sort of change, some sort of algorithm change. It's really difficult to keep up with. But I think that as business owners, realtors, as social media, if you're trying to make an impact online, you need to, I think, continuously try new things. So I subscribe to the 80-20 rule. 80% of my time is really dedicated to something that I know works, that's been working. And then 20% of my time, I'm experimenting with something new. Like, for example, Clubhouse. Wow, we're experimenting here. This is working. We're going to dedicate more time. And then just continuously experimenting and trying new things, I think, is absolutely crucial to your success in this new technological world.
I love that, man. I think I've heard you say it over and over again, but the failing over and over again leads to the corrections that leads to the wins. And I think that that's something that people are afraid to do, is try something new because they're afraid they're going to fail. But that's what I love about, people like yourself that actually have other guests on as well, that all talk about the stuff that they did wrong and the mistakes that they made on the way up. And I think that that's more important than ever, because in today's social media, everybody wants to be an influencer, just showing like, this is all I do all day is I hang out on the beach with girls and I drive around Lamborghinis. And it's like, even if you do that, show people how hard you worked to get there and all the things that you messed up to get there. Because sometimes I feel like I'm alone on the island, and then I talk to somebody like you and you're like, oh no, man, like I had a week that no leads came in, or like they shut down my whatever account and I adjusted from it. You're like, okay, like everything's not perfect for everybody. And I think that that helps the average person who listens and struggles. So they don't watch somebody like you and go, everything was easy for him, it just all fell into place. It's like, no, you work hard for certain things. And I've heard you say, which I thought was perfect, that the two most important things for a successful entrepreneur are discipline and perseverance. And I could not agree with that more, because especially like you said, people are working from home. It gets very easy. For instance, like I heard the term recently that good habits are ruined by bad days. And I agree with that. Yesterday I had a deal, then the deal fell through, and my whole planned day turned into me falling asleep on the couch with a piece of cake and watching Netflix. And I had to get up and run and everything got delayed. So how do you stay positive and stay productive when things are not going as planned?
Oof, man, it's tough. It's tough. I mean, I think that going into any sort of entrepreneurial venture, either, again, whether that's selling homes, whether that's writing bank loans, whether that's just trying to create a podcast that people actually listen to, you need to understand there's going to be ups and downs. There are going to be days where things are just like everything is working. You book a big client, maybe you book another big guest, maybe that person you've been trying to get money from finally pays you, right? There's going to be great days. There's going to be crappy days, guaranteed. So I try not to get too high or too low in my days, my weeks. I try to surround myself with people that I trust, and I think that there is definitely a level of solitude that goes with building some sort of online presence. You're just going to be spending a lot of time on that. But the more people you can bring along for the ride, I think the better. And I think that, when we look at real estate specifically, which I've worked with a number of realtors, I've been in the insurance business, home insurance business for over a decade. So I have an idea of some of the problems and challenges that realtors go through. But I mean, it's a very competitive, very lonely business. Very competitive, very lonely. So I think finding ways to develop a community around your ideas and your expertise will make it so much easier to reach new people, to build credibility, to stay top of mind. And I think that now is a really special time in history, which we don't know how long it's going to last. It's easy to reach people on Instagram today. In 5 years, it might be impossible.
I love that. And like you said, it does get overwhelming with everything changing. And I think for people, again, what I love about your whole show thing is the after hours entrepreneur is, people have a 9 to 5, but then there's a 5 to 10 every day. And like, that's really what it takes to be able to put those things in there. So for somebody who's maybe listening to this and they're going, you know what, I want to start a podcast, or I want to start a business, or I want to get into real estate. And then they go, but you know what? It's too late. I should have done it a year ago. I missed the boat. Everybody jumped in during COVID. That comes up a lot. Even myself sometimes, well, now everybody's in multifamily. Maybe I should go find something else. So when you hear that and somebody looking to do something to better their life personally or financially, thinks that it's too late, what would your advice be to them?
Well, I mean, it's not too late. I think that it's too late is an excuse that I hear over and over and over. And everyone always says this, I'll start when this happens, right? But what inevitably happens is you keep pushing it off and off and off. And then 5 years down the road, you're like, wow, I wish I would have started. The same thing with Bitcoin. People say stuff like, Bitcoin's too much. I should have got in 3 years ago. Well, Bitcoin is still, like when I got in, it's still up like 300% from when I actually purchased, right? So not to say go invest in Bitcoin or anything, that's highly volatile. But I think my point is I think that right now is the best time to just start and then go back and assess what worked, what didn't work, what do I enjoy, what do I not enjoy? And you can really craft your own media, almost your in-house media company, with making the right decisions on people, with making the right decisions on strategy, and making the right decisions on tech, the technology that you can use, the automations you can use to save yourself time. And really that's what I focus on is helping people create better content in less time. And because there's a few formulas that you can follow to really leverage your valuable time. Maybe a half hour a week can lead to an entire week of content. Again, it kind of depends on the strategies, your goals. But that's what I focus on, is help people get clear on their goals. And then how do we execute that? How do we actually pump it out? Because it's again, I don't want to repeat myself too much. It's a very unique time in history. You're not always going to have access to what we have access to now. In 5 years, it might be impossible. It might be like running a television commercial for $1 million, right? But you have an opportunity now. And if you leverage it, amazing things can happen.
I love that. And I think you're 1,000% correct. Just like you said with, TikTok, there's going to be a time that people go, oh man, I wish I would have gotten on TikTok then. And yeah. I think that podcasts and LinkedIn are interesting because they're two things that were around for a while that I don't think initially kept that like hot fuse of like, this is the hot thing that everybody needs to jump on. But it seems to have had like a resurgence that it really stood the test of time. And now it's actually catching on more while all these other ones are fizzling out. And that interests me when something has longevity like that and is still really strong. I appreciate that. So I feel like, go ahead.
Well, and that's part of the life cycle, I think, of social media platforms. I see time and time again, people keep creating content for Facebook. I'm on Facebook. The problem is Facebook life cycle is matured, right? So your chance of reaching new people on Facebook without paying, almost impossible. But to your point, you can still reach tons of people on TikTok and on LinkedIn if you do it right, but you're not going to reach any new people on Facebook without paying. You can on TikTok and LinkedIn right now. But there's a life cycle that these social media platforms go through.
Yeah, I agree 1,000%. And talking about podcasts, that was literally what made me do it. It was 2 years of me waking up going, I wish I would have started this a year ago. And then one day I was like, I'm just going to start doing it today. What was your experience that made you go into starting the After Hours Entrepreneur podcast? I know you had the other podcast first, but what really led into this one developing?
Well, I knew I wanted to do something. I've been in the insurance business. I still run an agency. I've been in the insurance business for over a decade. And I said, the world is changing. I won't go into all the details and all the challenges that are facing personal lines insurance agents, automation, car automation, et cetera. But I knew I wanted to evolve, and I tried a bunch of different things, and I eventually landed on social media content production. Because let's face it, there's only one skill I think that you really need to be successful right now, and that's knowing how to communicate digitally with people, right? And that's large, right? That could be a podcast, a YouTube channel, Zoom calls, whatever it is, but you need to be able to communicate digitally, period. If you're still putting up billboards and waving it in the mall, pulling people over the mall, it's not going to work. You need to be able to reach people digitally. And I said, what's the best way to do that? Let's start a video podcast And by getting clear on how to record a high quality program, well, then we can repurpose that with tons of little micro content pieces, whether that's little Instagram reels, or maybe those are carousel sliders for LinkedIn, documents they're called on LinkedIn. So there's a lot of different ways that you can break that up. But to answer your initial question, I started out with the Awesome Dad Show. And when I started that podcast, I said, even if I get 0 listens, I'm going to do this for 1 year. I'm going to do 52 episodes and I'm going to see where I'm at, because I want to learn. I'm hungry. And after a year, I found that people were not paying me on how to be an awesome dad, how to become a better father. People were paying me on how to create podcasts, how to create social media presences, how to grow Facebook groups, right? And so I said, because I'm finding this gap in the market, I'm going to create an asset. I'm going to create the After Hours Entrepreneur to serve them. And that's kind of how the After Hours Entrepreneur began.
I love that, man. It's just, like you said, it's about being open to opportunities and being flexible and pivoting when something pops up, because it might not be initially what you think it is, but if you're open, that's when really good things happen. And, you know, for somebody starting out, I want to dig a little bit deeper into social media, being that there's so many different platforms, and you might completely disagree with it, but you know, normally somebody's going, where do I start? But it almost sounds like with what you're doing and repurposing content, you're kind of starting everywhere. What would your advice be to somebody who's going, look, I'm kind of new to social media in general, but I want to put myself out there. Where do I start? What do I do?
So big question. And the answer is, it depends on you. It depends on your goals. I think firstly, you need to be very clear on who your audience is. Okay. And when I talk about that, let's take real estate, for example. Are you selling to commercial investors? Are you helping, you know, mom and pop move their leasing, you know, their office to another leasing facility? Are you helping families find that new middle-class home? Are you helping the rich get their luxury? Be very clear on who you speak to. Okay. Because you're not for everybody. This is a mistake a lot of people make when they're crafting a show, right? So be clear on who you speak to and find out where they are. Find out where they live, where they're surviving, right? If you're reaching corporate executives, maybe you're on LinkedIn and you're trying to prospect on LinkedIn. Okay. If you're trying to reach the younger generation, maybe millennials, maybe TikTok is a good source. So we can go into that in more detail, but being super clear on who you speak to is very, very important, because then you can craft your messaging around your show, around your carousels, around your themes to meet that demographic's problem, because they have a problem. You have a solution. So how do you give them quick bite-sized wins? Keep giving your demographic bite-sized wins. They'll keep coming back for more and for more and for more until eventually, hopefully, that turns into a sale or a referral. But I think, again, 3,000-foot overview before you even start recording is being clear on who you speak to and how you solve their problem. And then we could start crafting content that's, again, especially catered toward that person with the answers that you have for that problem that they have. Yeah.
I love that, man. I think that's great. You got to really niche down, because you can't attract everybody with one thing. So I think that's very good at being specific. As far as content creation and multi-purposing, I do it. And you and I were talking ahead of time about it. It's a lot of work. You know, everybody thinks podcasting is you take a mic and then you put your face on. It's not like that. It does take a lot of time. So on the business side of stuff, how are you delegating that? Because I will say, what you're doing as far as your social media clips, anybody listening, there'll be links for all your social media. I love what you're putting out there with the caption clips and the little snippets with the different people and a little bit of everything. And that's exactly kind of what I go for. But the people that have tried to come to me with it, I don't agree usually with the messages and the clips that they're picking. Like, they're picking stuff that's kind of irrelevant or it doesn't make sense. So what do you do, or what do you suggest as far as being able to delegate that stuff out and not lose the sense of who you are and what your message and brand are?
Well, okay. So one of the things that I think is important is, and I don't want to get too far off topic because I want to stay on how, you know, realtors can reach new people. But, you know, when you're bringing on a new client, I think it's really important to make sure that you're actually fit up front, because I've worked with clients that were working with 2 or 3 other coaches and they didn't want to do what I was recommending. And they're just kind of all over the place. We didn't get the right results. So I think having good questions up front with potential clients is good, because you want to qualify them for your company, for your business. You are not for everyone. You're just not. I'm sorry. You're not for everyone. So, you know, being clear on who you're for. And that's not to say that you might, you know, you're going to turn down a family friend to help them sell their home. That's not the case. But when specifically it comes to social media messaging, the images, the questions that you ask, the answers that you give, the title of your show, that needs to be specifically designed to reach your demographic, your psychographic, the person and the people that you speak to. It's very, very important. Okay. So again, that's A. You want, as soon as someone lands on your social media profile, to know this is for me. This is for me. And people are drawn to that. And when it comes to creating the content, I'm kind of going down a ladder of information here, right? So you've made it clear who you speak to, right? You've probably got some frequently asked questions that you want to tackle, that your demographic asks. Maybe you have a few guests that you want to bring on your show, but from the context of creating content to answer those frequently asked questions. This is what I love to do, Nick. I'm just going to break down the whole game for you here. You find the frequently asked questions that your demographic, your psychographic, your perfect client asks. You write down an outline of all the questions they ask, and maybe 3 or 4 different bullet points that you would recommend that they address. So you want to sell your home, sell it during this time of year, make sure you have fresh paint, make sure you have, fresh water out front, whatever it is, whatever your 3 tips are. And then you create video content to answer those questions. Okay. Now, we could talk a lot about outsourcing and all the roles that play a position, because you're not going to be an expert in every position of the social media production life cycle. But from an upper level, we figured out who we speak to. Now we're figuring out what we want to say to them. So then the next question becomes, how do we actually get it out there? How do we actually make it hit? But those, I think, are the first 2 cores to actually having a social media presence that even makes sense.
I love that, man. I think that's an excellent advice. And again, some of the things I've heard you talk about, especially in the YouTube side, is I do hear a lot of people say that, oh, you can't grow organically on YouTube anymore. And you've had a lot of success on it. And I was looking over your YouTube, and I was very impressed with the way you have it categorized and laid out, and the thumbnails and everything on there. And I saw that you had a very popular video about a few tasks that you can use to hire VAs. And that seems to be a very, very popular thing. So I was going to ask for you, what are a couple of things either for social media content creation or disbursement, or just for growing a podcast, that you delegate out to VAs?
I delegate a lot out right now. I delegate a lot, because one of the reasons I started this whole project, this whole business, Savant Media, where we help people create better content in less time, is because I wanted to have more time. I wanted to have more time with my family. So the sooner you start budgeting and outsourcing certain roles, the better. And you can do that by building your own in-house media team. I help businesses do that. Or you can just hire out an entire agency to do everything for you, which will happen much more quickly, but it's more cost, it's more expensive. So you're going to be trading time for money. So anyway, there's a few roles I think you need to think about. One of which we've been talking about today is strategy. You need to have someone that's developing your strategy. You need to have talent, someone who's actually doing the recording. You need to have editors. You probably need a graphic editor, maybe a video editor, maybe an audio editor you might need. You're going to need a social media manager, someone that's actually creating the post, someone that's engaging with the people that are posting, right? You need a communications manager, someone that handles all the emails that you get, right? So I generally think that to have a really successful place, you want to have probably 5 to 7 assistants or team members on your team. At least that's where I'm at now, but it's ever growing. It's ever growing as new roles position themselves. But now, I mean, I don't know about you, Nick, but I spent too many years going to sleep on Sunday night thinking to myself, do I have posts lined up? Did I post yesterday? Did I respond? I think honestly, I think that's why people just say, I don't want to do social media, because they're tired of that feeling, but when you outsource it to either a team or to individuals, then you could sleep easy. You don't have to worry, did I post today? It's done. It's already done. And that to me is where social media becomes just, instead of being a burden on you, this insatiable monster that just consumes and consumes and consumes, then it becomes the tooth fairy that's just bringing you potential leads every day. And it's in meeting up with people like yourself, Nick. It's really powerful when you start to stand out. And again, I'm just going back to the strategy section. You might say, well, what do I want to stand out for? That's the question. What do you want to stand out for? You can't be known for everything, so what do you want to be known for? And then create content that revolves around that. The rest takes care of itself.
I love that, man. That's an outstanding answer. I know you're getting a little tight on time, so I like to call this the victory lap, where we finish up with just a few key questions before we let you go. One of them being, do you have a favorite quote?
I have a few favorite quotes. I'll give you 2 here. So the first one comes from Gary Vaynerchuk. I will edit it for language. But I saw him live a few years ago, and he made this statement. He said, "Make more content!" Expletive. Make more content. Those were his final words, and it made so much sense to me at the time because it's so cheap to reach new people. It's not 20 years ago, or 30 years ago, or 50 or 100. Like, it used to be hard to reach new people. It is easy now. It is easy. So make more content. Bleep. The second thing that I heard Sean Cannell say from over the Think Media team the other day was, if you confuse, you lose. And man, that really hit me so hard. If you confuse, you lose, because being clear and concise in who you serve and how you serve them is the key. That is the key to having a successful platform, because if you confuse, you lose.
Man, that's so key. I've tried to beat that into some people's heads in the past, and they just don't get it. They think the way to win people over is to jam them up into knots. Give them some confidence, man. Put them down a right path, and then you'll make them happy. You'll get that sent over your way. Any surprising moments or inspiring guests that you didn't know of? Like, I know I had Jordan Harbinger on, and I listened to his interview with Kobe Bryant, and I was completely wrong about who that guy was and what he was about, and it really won me over. I was very surprised by him. You've interviewed a lot of successful people. Was there anybody that had that effect on you?
Well, I've interviewed a lot of really cool people. One person that really stands out to me was Jasmine Starr. And Jasmine Starr she's basically a personal branding expert, and she runs a company called Social Curator, where she helps people make a lot of social media content in less time, kind of like what I do, but a little different. But the one thing that Jasmine brought to the podcast was so much personality. And I think that's really underrated right now. I think it's really easy for us to say that, well, broadcasting communication needs to be done a certain way because I need to be seen as professional. But I think that when you really let your own personality shine through the screen and shine through the mic and shine through your images, people really respond to that authenticity. And I know that to me, Jasmine was kind of like a magnet because of how much personality, and she was using slang and stuff I hadn't heard before. And I just thought that was really, it was very attractive to me from a marketing standpoint, because you want to be around people that you feel are authentic. And the more you put into your show, into your programming, the more authentic it's going to come across.
Awesome. And I actually found her through you and through the clips that you released of her. So you did a great job, because I agree. I was like, man, she's got a great personality. She sticks out. She pops a little bit. So I think that's awesome, man. As far as advice for somebody, knowing what you know now about life and business, what advice would you give a younger Mark Savant today?
Well, I guess it depends on my age, because I've gone through lots of phases of life. But for me, I really subscribe to done is better than perfect. Done is better than perfect. I've known too many people, and this kind of brings us right back full circle to what we started talking about in the beginning. There's always a reason not to start. There's always a reason. There's always a reason why today is not the right day, but you just got to get started, because done is better than perfect. It's never going to be perfect. I had a friend who a few years ago was seeing the success I was having and what I was doing, said, I want to do the same thing. I want to have an outdoor channel. I'm going to teach people how to make fire outdoors. It's going to be primitive living. It's going to be great. I said, that's awesome. Go for it. He's like, but I can't do it until I get a kayak. Once I get a kayak, then I'll start my channel. Still doesn't have a channel. Still hasn't done anything, and I think that fortune favors the bold, but just to kind of bring it back, done is better than perfect. Perfect's never going to happen.
Wise words, man. I love that. And finally, obviously, how do people work with you? What kind of services do you offer? How do they connect with you? Talk all things Mark Savant Media.
Well, I've got a lot of different exciting things, but there's two things, Nick, that I'm excited about right now. One of which is kind of a group coaching platform where I take people from building out their strategy and their branding to actually getting content posted online. The whole thing, it's going to be a group coaching platform with one-on-one opportunities. I'm really excited about that. I think it's going to be very affordable. I'm excited about that. And then up until now, I've really been focused on one-on-one agency services. So if you're a business, I can help you do everything. You want to record 30 minutes a week and have a presence 24/7, 365. That's what me and my team do. We help you create better content in less time. And I think, Nick, for me, I got to this point where I was kind of tired of two things. I was tired of helping just one person when I know that there's dozens and dozens of people that I'm connecting with each week. And I said, how do I help these people? I've got the free podcast and the YouTube and all this stuff, but how do I actually get into what they're doing specifically? And I decided, you know, I don't want to just handle these single one-on-one accounts. I want to help groups of people to build up, you know, A, because that's kind of how I felt led. And B, it's nice from a consistency standpoint, from an income consistency standpoint. Y'all know in the real estate world, sometimes it's like feast or famine, you know, and it's the same kind of deal when you're running an agency. Sometimes you land 3 clients at the same time and it's got money pouring from the heavens. Other times it's a month of we're trying to prospect and bring in that lead. So anyway, that's what I'm excited about now. You can reach me at mark@marksavantmedia.com. Shoot me an email, mark@marksavantmedia.com. I'm happy to help.
Awesome. And obviously I'll have all the links for the ways to connect with you in the show notes. If anybody's listening, it'll be on there. I thought this was awesome, man. I've been wanting to get you on for a long time. I love everything you're doing on your podcast and your social media, on your YouTube. I think it's all outstanding content. I always look forward to what you put out there. Any final words before we let you go today?
Nick, I just really appreciate your time, you know, letting me spend some time here with the A Game audience. I just, you know, for you to spend a few minutes with myself and Nick here today is a real honor. It's just very honored to have a few minutes to pour into you a little bit. And we just touched the tip of the iceberg, but I'm excited to do this again.
I love it, man. Thank you so much. Welcome to the A Game podcast. Thank you for being on and sharing your experience. Mark Savant, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks for watching Mark Savant Media. Here, we're going to help you create a better content in less time and turn that attention into income. If you love this video, you're going to love these videos here. Click the one. Me and my team specially selected this just for you. Click the link. Check out the video. I'll catch you here next time on Mark Savant Media. Peace.